Hi there, welcome to Backpacking with Buckley. Today, we're going to get a little salty. So full disclaimer, I'm sure you're all smart enough to deduce that this is just an opinion-based video developed for my own entertainment. But that being said, it's important to note that everything I offer you today is simply just that. My own simple opinion on some topics that I have often heard talked about in the YouTube world and maybe around a few campfires out there. Let's start off the conversation with a doozy, shall we? And that was a question inspired by my friend Rob Pelton, and not a very uncommon question necessarily, but a really fun one to kind of ponder, and that is, are YouTubers legit? In other words, why could YouTubers be both relevant and irrelevant at the same time? And I think there's some few talking points that are important to bring up when we talk about this subject. All right, so I think the most probably talked about topics in relevance to are YouTubers legit are the fact that some of them are sponsored, some of them are paid promoters, some of them just receive free gear, and let's face it, some of them may not express themselves or portray themselves as somebody who really even has all that much experience in the backcountry. So how do you read between the lines on who is telling you the truth and who is giving you just a bunch of bullshit? Now, I like to keep questions as black and white as possible when I ponder my deep thought theories. And I think when it comes to are YouTubers legit, the way that I guess, try to gauge or gather the information on whether or not I trust a YouTuber is relatively simple. I think we all have an inner sense of whether or not somebody is being genuine to us. And there are some signs that you can look for that are red flags or the opposite of that. Some red flags are that person never dislikes any piece of gear they ever review. And some on the other flip side of that coin would be somebody does get free gear and they admit that they think it's a piece of garbage. So I myself, am a long ways away from being sponsored. I am not paid to promote products, but I do on occasion receive some free gear from companies to review. And I guess speaking from the heart, as genuine as I can possibly portray myself, that when I do receive gear, you do feel a certain amount of honest pressure to say something positive about that gear. But that being said, I always try my best to be as objective and honest as possible when I'm reviewing that. And oftentimes I will do kind of a first impressions or preview of a piece of gear that I receive and then realize something down the road that I didn't necessarily notice at first and try to come back in one of my videos and just let people know that I was wrong. So I think those are some litmus tests for all of you to look out for with YouTubers is just figure out and gauge how genuine and sincere they are by watching all of their videos and subscribing to their channel and making sure you hit the notification bell to make sure that you can really vet that YouTuber for trustworthiness. So I myself will fully admit that I have learned just an extraordinary amount about backpacking and hiking from YouTube and from YouTubers. And I think that it is one of the finest resources to go to when you want to figure something out, whether that be something about gear that you're interested in or a trail you're interested in hiking. YouTube is one of the first places I will always go to find those types of those pieces of information. The single biggest piece of advice I can offer everyone out there, though, is that start with YouTube and social media resources first, and then finish with your own personal research. You will learn very quickly that backpacking is a very personal hobby. There will be things that you absolutely adore in the gear world and somebody else absolutely thinks is a pile of garbage, and vice versa. So the important part is to think proactively on how will I use this piece of gear that I'm researching and will it fit my needs? So it's a simple piece of advice. Don't just go out and buy everything that you're told is awesome. Figure out whether or not it's going to work for you. And that's the Buckley advice. That was dumb. All right, this is a question that I have pondered personally. So I didn't get this from anybody else other than just from my own neurotic little head. Facebook is where I probably see the most of this, but I've noticed as a hammock camper that hammock campers are actually pretty snobby sometimes. And I don't mean that to say that broadly that all hammock campers kind of have this snobbiness about them. It is actually not a hammock versus tent issue, in my opinion. It is actually elitist hammock type of attitude. And what I see that the most from, with all due respect to you folks out there that do DIY projects, it's the DIYers and the people who really think they know everything there is to know about how to hang a hammock, you know, aka tying knots and things of that nature. And one of the most annoying things that I see on Facebook is that, for example, Eno Hammocks, which is kind of the, let's call it the Nike of hammocks, they're a very commercial brand. They get so much hate, and I often will see somebody that is just getting into hammocking, and they are so excited to just get out there and lay in their hammock and sleep the night in a hammock, and they got a new Eno hammock, and some elitist will come along on Facebook and just crush their soul. So I think it's important to advise that anybody that's looking to get into hammocking, if you're getting into forums and things like that on Facebook and watching YouTube videos of folks like me that are sporting a $1,000 hammock setup, don't think by any means that that is the only way to go out and enjoy hammocking. As a matter of fact, I would recommend that you do start on the cheap end of things and see if you can sleep in one of the darn things before you invest. So, why are hammock campers so snobby? I don't have a great answer for that other than knowing how to tie knots and insecurities go hand in hand. Meh. Meh. I'm no psychiatrist. I think a good complementary question to the hammock snob question we just talked about is, why do people leave really mean comments on YouTube and other social media outlets? So I have a lot of different theories on mean people and people that take time out of their day just to leave mean comments. And I have really developed what I think is a good way for me to personally cope with the jerks of the world. And I think it's to apply empathy and really realize that what's going through a person's mind when they wake up and they watch a YouTube video and something enrages them so much that they have to make a jerky, mean, assholey comment on your video or picture of your trip or whatever it may be, fill in the blank on social media. I think it's really a huge indicator that that person is hurting on the inside somewhere. They're missing something in their life, and they certainly have some insecurities and very likely some self-esteem issues. I see no other reason for negativity. So before you get yourself into a battle with folks that are being jerks on your social media accounts, try to take a page from their book and think about what it might be like to wake up and be the person that would take the time to say something so mean and negative on somebody else's work or picture, whatever it may be. So empathy, I think, is a simple answer to mean jerks on Facebook, and trying to realize that maybe they're not mean jerks at all. They're probably just struggling with some life issues. So the next question is really kind of hard to address because everybody's been through junior high before. Everybody's kind of felt that pressure to fit in. And the question that I wanted to address was asked to me, I think, by my sister. And that's, why do YouTubers seem to be formed into these little cliques? And if you watch some of my videos, you may even be pointing fingers at me right now saying, you hang out with a lot of the same people all the time, communicate with the same people. It's really not that complicated. You get to know people really quickly on trail. I've said this in a lot of my videos that I become fast friends with people, and like any other friend in life, if they live a long ways away and you have the opportunity to hang out, you seize that opportunity whenever you can. So I've met some friends early on in the YouTube community that have really had a big impact on my life, and I hang out with them a lot. Now, the flip side of that coin is the kind of the controversial side of things, and that is that some people, I've had some experience with it, and I've heard a lot of it from bigger channels than myself, where they will just kind of get inundated with people who are very sincere and zealous to maybe meet and hike with one of the people they love to watch on YouTube, and it just gets to be kind of overwhelming. Think Shug, for example, who probably gets 3 to 50 invites a day to go camping with him. And I think the pressure is real because kind people don't want to constantly say no, but when you have a circle of friends that you can rarely hang out with anyway, it's tough to add to that mix. So if you're one of those folks out there that's maybe new to YouTube, I've been there before too. You just start by meeting people here and there, and then your circle will grow as long as you're not a jerk. So in other words, my theory on YouTube clicks is not that it is a junior high atmosphere. It's just that people kind of are magnetized towards one another based on their videos and personalities. And oftentimes they become friends, and oftentimes they're 15 hours away from one another. So they get together a couple times a year and make it a priority because their friendships are close bonds. That's all I have to say about that question. Once in a while, I'll relax and I'll sit back and take a couple hits off of my Ty Cobb titanium backpacking pipe. And while I'm doing that, I'll come up with some of the strangest questions. And this was actually brought up at a camp, but I've thought of it several times. So I thought, what an opportunity to bring up this very profound question. And that is for folks that are out there. We're all leave no trace principle people, but there are varying levels of that. I'm just curious. Why do people get upset when you burn paper? Isn't it just wood? Now, I'm not dumb. I know that there could be chemicals in the paper and so on and so forth, but if I'm going to burn a napkin from McDonald's, I would challenge anybody that's on the very extreme end of the leave no trace spectrum to argue with me as to why that napkin would do more damage to the environment by burning it than it would throwing it into a landfill where it will take years to biodegrade. Fight me. All right, so now for the question you've probably all been waiting for, based on the thumbnail. Why are there so many Dan Becker haters in the world of backpacking? Now, maybe you're a huge fan of Dan Becker. Maybe you've been watching him for years. Maybe you think he's a wonderful guy. And the truth be told, I think he's a pretty great guy too. I've never met him before. I really know nothing about his personal life, but I have learned a lot from Dan Becker, especially when I started backpacking early on. And I have always asked myself that question. Why does he get so much hate? So if you're not nerdy enough to be deep into the very small percentage of the world that watches backpacking videos, Dan Becker is a very big channel, and he's been around for a long time. And for some odd reason, when I'm talking to people, when I watch other YouTubers that I don't know, Dan Becker is kind of the butt of a lot of jokes out there. And I've never really figured out why. Some of the jokes we'll just be open and honest about are about the fact that he doesn't hike all that often, that he's a sellout, things like that. Why beat around the bush with the things we hear, right? Let's be honest. People think that Dan Becker is kind of a poser. Now, here's my challenge to all you Dan Becker haters out there. And again, I am not his fan club president. I don't have any ill will towards him. I don't think he's a bad guy at all. As a matter of fact, I applied empathy to Dan Becker as well. And here's my theory. My theory is this. I think that a lot of Dan Becker haters are secretly just jealous. I also think that a lot of Dan Becker haters really would probably do the same thing if they were in Dan Becker's shoes. And what I mean by that is if you were inundated with all these offers from gear companies to take free gear, to accept money, to make your family happier and more stable, to get to go on awesome trips that gear companies invite you to, I think there's a good percentage of us out there that would probably say yes to those offers. I think it's important to note that. But more importantly, I think it's important to note something that you don't really think about, and that's, I don't know Dan Becker from Adam, but I do know he has a family, and I do know that he has a job and a wife and children, and he has a lot of responsibilities outside of YouTube. So when you're hating on him for not hiking all the time, and you're old like me, remember back to the good old days when your kids were in diapers, or they were in 8th grade and had to go to soccer or hockey practice 5 times a week. And think about how hard it was for you to get out and backpack. So if Dan Becker's built a channel that big around that many challenges, I say hats off to you, Dan. So hey, the Dan Becker thing, let's learn to live and let live and realize that everybody has their own way of doing stuff. And as long as you are getting outside, if you have success by doing that, or you gain happiness by doing that, we should be getting pats on the back from everybody in our community. There shouldn't be any division. That goes for a worldwide scale. Right now, we live in a tough time, and I think that every tiny step we can make to be kinder will make the world a little bit better, and we got a huge hill to climb. So without further ado, I hope you enjoyed this salty video, But more importantly, really, be yourself. Be happy. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll catch you on the next adventure.